Okay guys, this one's a Mitsubishi HSU65 Super VHS machine. And let's see what this one's up to. Okay, standard video plays just fine. No problem. Picture looks great. Let's eject this tape. And we'll just switch that input over. We'll put a Super VHS tape into this one here and see how this one looks. And like the HSU82, this one here has got a crappy picture. I mean, okay, it doesn't look as bad as the HSU, but it does, because this should be nice and bright white. Look at that. I mean, it looks like crap. So, HSU65. This one here also, I think, has a slipping belt because, well, sometimes tapes don't want to come out of it, so we'll investigate that. But this video, we're going to fix this one. This one here being of the same relative vintage as the last one, I think probably we're looking at a problem that is similar to the HSU82 that I just worked on. There's only 2 screws in this one. That was pretty common for my my shop, was to only have a couple screws in the unit because it made for easy access when I needed to clean heads, which I had to do on a regular basis. So I've not worked on one of these ones in a long time either, but I believe the disassembly of this is probably very similar to the disassembly of the U82. The board should be hinged just like it was on the U82 and should flip up out of the way. This one I've already done the power supply capacitors on this. These ones here had a problem with leaking caps. That's already been done on this one. Again, it's a linear power supply though, so it's not like the those high temperature ones that leak all over the place. These ones just went bad. And that service was done a long time ago. Oops, one more screw it looks like. It'd be nice if they marked them with an arrow or something so that you don't break a board trying to open it up before you realize that there's another screw. Okay, what do we got on this machine, this fine piece of equipment? Does this one use the same type of modules as the other one? Wouldn't that be nice if it did? And you know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that little circuit board that I just fixed on the other machine, which has a nice little surface mounted electrolytic sticking up on it. And I don't see one. Similar, but enough different to, okay, I do see one, actually. I do see that circuit board. It's right here. Focus the camera in. It looks like that one right there. I believe that's the same board. Come on, camera. Be a good camera and focus. Let's throw some more light on it. That might help. And it looks to be the same IC with the same JVC IC on it. I bet you that's the one. What do you think? Let's pull this board. That would be just such a coincidence to have 2 separate models that both use the same board. And it's a JVC board that's in there. At least the IC on it is JVC. You know, that reminds me of something else that we used to see an awful lot of, 20 odd years ago. That was the infamous soundboard on Sony TVs. So I'm just going to use the scope on this thing just so we can take a look at the video signal. I don't know if you can see the screen on the scope there or not, but probably can't see it now. We're just going to put the scope on, just like I did on the last one. And we'll look at the signal. So there's the signal on one side of the capacitor, and the sink is all crushed. And on the other side, the sink, look at the difference in the level. Okay, I don't know if you can see that or not, but a nice strong video signal on one side of the capacitor, and the other side, the whites are clipped, and the sink is crushed. I'll zoom this thing in on the scope so you can see the difference here. Okay, so, of course now I get the light right in the shot. Wonderful. Get the light out of the way. So here's one side. Okay, I have the cap. Sync levels look okay. And then we go to the other side and look at the difference. Actually, the sync levels look okay on this side, and on this side of the cap, they're crushed. So we're going to change this capacitor, and that will fix this one. This video should almost be a bonus video added to the other video, because this one's going to be really short. This video is only going to be 5 minutes long because we don't really have to do any troubleshooting. I already know what the problem is because I just fixed it. But for educational purposes, this is a short video, or will be a shorter video. We're going to remove the module here, replace that capacitor, and then that should fix this machine. So before we do any work on it, of course, make sure we unplug it. One nice thing about this machine is that the circuit board folds right over, and it's easier, a lot easier to work on this one, to take parts out of this, at least off this board. It's a lot easier to work on this one than it was the U82, because the U82 had a lot more stuff in it. With all the special trick playbacks and stuff, it had other circuit boards and so forth on it that just made it a little more difficult to work on than this one. But saying that, this unit has surface mounted transistors and surface mounted resistors, and you got to be careful when you're using solder wick around other surface mounted parts, because the solder wick itself gets hot and it will melt the solder, and if you accidentally touch some of the surrounding components, you could inadvertently desolder them. I think you can probably see what I'm talking about here. Okay, we have surface mounted transistors and we have surface mounted resistors in the vicinity. So when we're using this stuff, this solder braid, to remove the solder from the part we want to remove, we really have to be careful to not allow it to make contact with some of the other components that are in the vicinity, because the heat will transfer through this braid and cause the other components to be heated or removed. Flow the solder off them and then they're off. So I'm just going to pull this IC out now so we can repair it. Just like before. I'm sure if I look at this thing we'll find that, yeah, you can actually see, get this on camera a bit better here. You can see where the electrolytic inside this capacitor has actually leaked out. You can see it's darkening, it's corroding the board. So like the other one, I'll probably just bridge it to pin 7 and 8, depending on whether I can get this thing out of here without the foil coming up. If I can get it out without the foil coming up, I won't bother, because, but we'll see. But that's where we're going to have to change it. We know that this is going to be bad just from the symptom. This one's actually a 22 microfarad at 6 volts, and I'm going to take this one off a little different. I'm actually just going to use my side cutters, and we're going to cut this one right off the board rather than deal with potentially damaging the board trying to unsolder it. We'll cut the top off this thing and pull the pins. That way we can put heat right on these little pins that remain here and lift them right off the board, as opposed to trying to unsolder them, because of the way these things are mounted. Just to get enough heat on them, you can sometimes damage. So this way I can just heat the pins up and they'll just pull right off the board just like that. I don't know if you saw that or not, but that way we can remove this thing without damaging the traces underneath. And then I'm just going to put some more solder on it so that the traces don't get damaged. Well, they already are damaged, aren't they, because of the electrolytic that was leaking out. Look at that, they've come right off. The electrolytic that was leaking out of here has damaged. Nope, it hasn't actually. They're okay. Yeah, the pads are okay on this one. I'll zoom the camera in so you can see it. So there's the pads. that we replaced this with. Now this one was a 22 microfarad, which is interesting because the other unit was a 4.7 at 35 volts. This one's a 22 at 6 volts. So slightly different design on this machine. Looks to be the same IC. So now with the new capacitor soldered onto the board, we're ready to reinstall it back into the main board. So we're ready to reinstall the IC. Pin 1 is this one on the edge here, it's marked. Pin 1 through pin 9. Pin 1 goes in this far side here. So the circuit board goes in with the new capacitor facing towards the casing. So now we've got the board mounted into the main circuit board. We can proceed to solder this module into place. Again, taking care not to bridge any connections and disturb any of the surface mounted components that are also sharing the area. Okay, now that we've mounted the module, we can once again turn the machine on and verify that it's working, that it's able to play the Super VHS tape. And once again, we have another machine that is fixed. Notice how much better, this is the recording made from a laser disc. Notice how much better the text is. It's nice and white now, whereas before it almost looked solarized. The colors are crisp and clear. So that's a Mitsubishi HSU65 with a luminance problem on Super VHS recordings where the picture was severely distorted. Again, to recap on the video board, that sub board here, there was a surface mounted electrolytic capacitor, and I just replaced it with a regular standard 22 microfarad electrolytic capacitor. What I don't understand is why this machine had a 22 microfarad electrolytic capacitor and the HSU82, which is the one that I previously repaired, had this one. And this is a 4.7 microfarad. Both circuit boards appear to look the same. They both appear to be the same board. They're both a board that was made by JVC, and chances are that same board is in JVC Super VHS machines. Let's do our test recording. Hook the antenna up here. In this case, it's not really an antenna, it's a coax line, but it's just feeding in from my in-house system. Then I have a few channels. Okay, we'll just try loading this tape up. And make sure that we've got hit record. And we are not in SVHS mode. I have to put this thing in SVHS, and I think I need to find a remote control for this machine to do it, because there's no switch. It was a software switch, so I got to dig up a remote control. So here's the remote control. I actually still have the original remote for this thing. Let's just take a look and see whether we can find some menus on this thing to select Super VHS. Again, this thing's been forever since I've used this thing, so I don't even know where to look in the menu. VCR speed, VHS, it's SVHS, there we go. Now we've just selected SVHS. So let's hit the record button, and we'll make a recording. This machine also has flying erase heads. So this was also a very good machine. I would top this one up as also one of the best. If you can find an HSU65 or an HSU67. Was this a 66? Yeah, this is a 65. 65 or 67. Phenomenal machine for recording and playing. It's a machine really that's tough to beat. Very well built, very strong chassis on this thing. They don't give a lot of problems. So there's a quick recording. This isn't the greatest source material, but we just want to make sure that it records and that it plays. So there we are. We've now rewound the tape, and we'll go back into play. And there's our playback. So, looks good to me. It looks the same as the original. So that's a Mitsubishi HSU65. We'll clean the heads on it before we put the top back on it. I know I was getting a bit of belt slippage when I first loaded the tape, but that appears to have worked its way out. Probably because it's been just sitting for a while without being used, right? So we'll just clean the tape using some writing paper. Spray a bit of cleaner on it and just hold it up against the head drum and spin the head drum a bit. There's a little bit of dirt on there, not a lot. It was more on the other machine. Audio and control heads, we can do the same. Wet the Q-tip and just swab the control head and linear audio head here. Tape path, guides, erase head, tape guides. There's actually more dirt, I think, on the tape guides and audio head than there was on the drum. Guides, capstan shaft, and pinch roller. And like the other one, we'll check this for the mechanism. This one actually is in better shape than the other. I should take the other machine apart and just put some lubricant on. This one's good to go. No, nothing sticking on this one. The other one, the pin here is a little sluggish returning. But that's pretty much this one. Just looking down at the chassis itself, it looks exactly the same as the other. Tape threads up the same. Nice thing about these machines is they have a manual recording level. So you can set your hi-fi recording level. It's got VU meters on it. Right, you can set your recording level and your recording balance. And I think it's got a headphone plug on it too. S-video in and out on the front and back. And on the front panel here, your basic tape transport controls. If I go into play, for example, I can play the picture back. If I put it in pause, it does have slow-mo and everything on this machine, but it's done through the remote control. Your jog shuttle dial on here is on the remote. So I can, go into variable speed playback. All from the remote control. Again, a great unit, and one of the more sought after SVHS decks because the mechanism was built very well. It's got a very good power supply in it. It's a linear power supply, good conventional transformer, conventional regulators. You can see where this power supply has been repaired. You see this? These wires. What did happen on these, and it happened on this one a number of years ago, is the electrolytic capacitors that they use were shitty capacitors out of the factory, and the bottom seals blew out, and the corrosive electrolytic leaked into the board, and it actually damaged the foil. That's what these wires are. This is from a previous repair to repair the print on the board that I had to do a number of years ago before I was making these videos. That was probably 10 years ago when I fixed that. So keep that in mind. Some of the symptoms of the capacitor failure on these boards is the clock display doesn't work because it's the negative supply that drives the fluorescent panel. So the display on the front goes dead. You have no display. That's a symptom of the capacitors are gone bad on here. But no need to show you guys that. That part's already fixed. This was a video problem that we have now resolved, and I'm starting to dry up my supply of machines that I actually want to fix. But we'll find some more stuff to keep it interesting, I'm sure. Till next time, we'll see you later. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you like these videos, and we'll keep them coming.